My name's Rhiannon Seyfried, and I know it can be kind of difficult to feel like part of a community during a global pandemic. So that's why we thought it was important to introduce all of you here at Linganore to our amazingly supportive staff, starting off with the Social Studies Department. Our first teacher is Miss Hendy. Besides food and water and basic human needs, what is one thing that you can't go one day without?
So, to answer that question, I'm going to consult two of my experts. The first one is going to be Dudley. Dudley, what do you think? What can I not go without? And then I'm going to ask my second expert, Bentley. What do you think? What can I not go without? Oh, I know what I can't go without. Love from my two awesome doggies.
Next up is Mr. Birch. Cats or dogs? Do you have a preference, and why?
Kind of set up for this question. I think people realized that I was probably going to say cats. I love dogs more than life itself, but cats are just so much more practical, and that you can leave them home for a day or two with food. You don't have to take them outside to go to the bathroom. They don't chew on things. Okay, maybe my little guy does. They live longer. You can have multiple ones. They bath themselves. They go to a litter box. They're less expensive. That's for you, Mr. Beaver. And they can be just as loving as a dog when they're small. If you pretty much show that you teach them, if you want them to fetch, my little guy fetches.
Hey buddy, what you got there? Get your toy. Good boy.
And my little guy is right here. Mikey, say hi.
All right, Miss Smithheisler, your turn. If you had no budget, what country would you travel to, and why?
If I had an unlimited budget to travel anywhere right now, I'm not gonna lie, I would probably pick multiple countries, just do like a tour. But specifically of Europe, I have a piece of my heart that still lives in Europe right now because I studied abroad in college twice. First in Prague, Czech Republic, and second in Dublin, Ireland. So I would hit up both of those countries for sure. But my favorite city is Prague. It is absolutely the city of fairy tales. There are castles, there's a ton of church spires on the skyline, there's red-tiled roofs, there's cobblestone streets, lots of really cool history in that city. So I would definitely hit up that city for a few weeks. And then, just because I have no budget, I would probably pick, a couple of other European countries right around that area. I would go to Germany, I would hit up Austria, maybe do a couple places in Italy. Why not visit Brussels, Belgium for some really good waffles? Definitely Europe is where I would go if I had an unlimited budget. But if you ever get the chance, I'm going to take a moment to say it, study abroad in college because it is awesome.
Miss Richardson, if you could time travel, what time period would you choose?
This was definitely a harder question for me, mostly because all the time frames or the times in history that I can think about studying that I love and I'm very interested in most cases are really bad for females to live during that time or just people in general. Some of my favorite places or times are the French Revolution, Victorian England, Egypt, or anything in the study of China, but in reality, women didn't have it so good then. So those would definitely be off my list for that reason. So if I had to choose a time frame that I would want to travel and possibly be for a period of time, it would probably be the 1920s in US history, because that was a time frame when women began to kind of gain their independence, and I would kind of have a life more of what I live today.
Hey there, Mr. Hawkins. If you could pick one of these places to spend the rest of your days in, which one would you choose? Museum, library, or zoo?
If I could only choose one place to stay for the rest of my life, I think I would have to choose the library, especially if it has internet access, because then I have access to information that's constantly changing, and I'll never be bored. But if the museum was anything like Night in a Museum, that might change my mind.
Moving on to Mrs. Diggs. What's your favorite time of year, and why?
My favorite time of year is fall because we go back to school, the kids go back to daycare, I get to wear sweaters and go to football games and eat. What do we get to eat?
Apples.
Can you take a bite?
Well, you have to clean it.
Oh, okay, I cleaned it. Yay! Can you say bye-bye?
Happy.
It's a happy apple.
Keeping it moving with Mrs. Murphy. If you could pick a beach trip or a camping trip, which one would you pick? How come?
The answer is, it don't matter as long as there's water.
Hey, Mr. Jensen, if you became emperor of the world, what would your first order of business be?
My first instinct would be to eliminate reality television. I mean, I think we can all agree it's enough, right? But perhaps the better use of that power would be to establish a global Bill of Rights, to make it enforceable and to make it apply to all nations. And this would make sure that everyone's natural rights were protected and that hopefully everybody would end up with a say in how their government was run.
Mr. Beaver, if you were given all the money in the world, what would you do with it?
Those that know me know if I get something for free, if it's free, I'll take two. So that means I'll have $2 million. So what would I do with that? Obviously, for the $1 million, I'd buy 1 million tacos. I hope everyone is having a great year. Take care. Comb your hair.
And finally, Mr. Hornbeck. If you could meet anyone in history, dead or alive, who would you want to meet and why?
If there's one person I could meet from history, hands down, it would be Mary Harris. Nobody ever called her that. Everyone called her Mom or Mother Jones. She died on her 100th birthday, and during her life she never owned anything more than she could carry in a brown paper bag. She took part in hundreds of strikes and protest marches, and the only thing she ever carried to protect herself against the thugs from the opposition was a mop and a broom. Historians would later discover that Theodore Roosevelt actually ordered the National Guard to keep her away from him, and she was 80 at the time. And if you're wondering what it was she was marching for, it was the rights of children and coal miners. In 1903, she organized a march of hundreds of the nation's elementary school children from Philadelphia to Oyster Bay, New York. That's where the president lived. And legend has it that at the end of the march, she went up and knocked on the president's door, and with hundreds of elementary kids behind her, she said, "Why aren't these kids in school?" See, Mother Jones is one of the reasons that we're all in school today, and we have child labor laws that let kids get educations as opposed to having to go to work. So yeah, there's a lot more of the story to tell, and if I could meet her, I'd ask her about all of it. Give her a Google search sometime. What a life.